Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Definition, and this episode we're breaking down the mirror world theory on Westworld. It's something that's surrounded this season since its first episode, and every week there becomes more and more evidence to support it. I've gone back and rewatched the season from the beginning, and there's a ton of hints towards it being the case that I definitely think are worth going over. Throughout this video, we're going to be breaking them all down and discussing whether these are flaws that showcase what's really going on, or if it's all merely a coincidence. There will of course be heavy spoilers here, so if you haven't seen up to episode 7 of season 3 yet, then I highly recommend that you turn off now. We haven't watched the finale yet as of making this video, so any speculation on this is purely for fun, but it will be interesting to see if this happens when the show concludes. Obviously, we'd love it if you subscribe to the channel, and with the finale right around the corner, there's never been a better time to join. If not, then thank you for clicking the video. Now let's get into our breakdown of the mirror world theory. Okay, so this theory was first hinted at in episode 1 by the loveable Rogue Rorderick. At a party to celebrate the Dempseys, he paid lip service to the possibility that everything could just be a simulation within a simulation. It's a theory that's floated around since the show first began, and initially it seemed like the writers were just poking fun at this with this moment. However, in episode 2 we followed Maeve, who was actually trapped within a simulation, and by episode 3, things just went all out. Not only did Dolores state that Serac had created a mirror world to predict human behaviour, but in episode 4 the character also confirmed this. The French futurist said that Rehoboam contained the most comprehensive picture of human behaviour ever seen, and in its mirror world it was able to predict future events with almost certain accuracy. However, he did state that there were gaps in the data, and this is why he needed the information within Dolores, which contained an even larger database. This has been the main thrust of his mission, but is it possible that everything we've watched, or at least certain elements of it, are within this mirror world? Well, personally I believe so, and after rewatching the season, there's so many mistakes and inconsistencies in it that I think it's almost glaringly obvious that certain elements are within the AI god. In episode 7, when Caleb and Dolores encountered Solomon, it seemed to have difficulty understanding whether this was actually reality or if it was just a simulation. This clearly happened with such accuracy that when going through it for real, it was unable to distinguish whether it was actually happening or not. Therefore, we can gather that the simulation itself appears extremely realistic rather than just being a collection of code. The season has been littered with moments that show divergences, and just in the same way that we travel to past events through the use of a Rehoboam graphic, we could also be seeing the mirror world through it too. Now let's firstly go a bit meta and look at the logo for Westworld Season 3. If you look at the W, it's split down the middle and appears as a palindrome, a mirror image of itself in which it becomes exactly the same when flipped. One side is darker than the other though, perhaps showing that the mirror world runs a darker version of events, an imagining of the worst case scenario so that Serac can counter it. That's just the logo though, and yeah, I will admit we could be completely reading into that. So let's look at the show itself. Mirrors, or at least the suggestion of them, are used throughout it. For example, Dolores and Hale mirror one another, not only in their personalities being split, but also the colour schemes that are used for them. Dolores wears black, Hale wears white, and this splitting of their personalities in two could also suggest that people on the whole have copies of themselves. There's also a statue behind them that looks like it's tearing itself in two. Hale shaved William in his mansion, which reflected Dolores shaving him in the park, and through the season there has been this suggestion. Now there has been one aspect that we've seen in the series that we know for definite was a simulation, and that is Maeve's trip through Warworld. On the whole, it was very accurate, except for a couple of notable inconsistencies. Firstly, Lutz and Sylvester did not recognise Maeve. They had a massive journey together in the park, so them being unaware of who Maeve was a big giveaway that something was off. Secondly was Lee Sizemore, and this was actually the thing that made Maeve realise that everything was taking place within a computer. The system incorrectly guessed that Lee was in love with Maeve. Because of this, it even went so far as assigning him drawings that he created of her, showing that a mistake within the machine can cause a butterfly effect that spirals out into all aspects of the person. Now in the show, elements that aren't taking part in a simulation also possess these inconsistencies. The first major one that sort of set everyone off tumbling down the rabbit hole came in episode 3, in which Dolores listened to messages left by the real Charlotte to her son. I've played these in breakdowns before, but just in case you've missed them, I'll play them again in just a bit. Listen close to the inconsistencies and make your own mind up from this.
I left, you wanted me to tuck you in, to sing you a song, our song, but I didn't have time, so I'm gonna sing it to you now.
So clearly, though they are similar in a lot of ways, there are some minor dialogue changes and moments that don't quite line up with one another. The way that Hale sits when listening to them both is also a mirror, as she sits on opposite sides to herself. One is listened to during the day and the other one is at night, once more showing perhaps a reflection. And yeah, this seems like such a big mistake that it's difficult to argue that the showrunners didn't put it in intentionally. What if Dolores actually only listened to the message once, and one was the real time and the other was just a simulation that got key aspects wrong? Well, it definitely could be. Serac later stated that the real Hale would never check in on her son during a crisis, and this message clearly points to that not being the case, showing that the information that he got from Rehoboam was wrong. This is really the moment that made me go back and watch the entire series before the finale, and I've noted down a lot more inconsistencies since becoming aware of this. The first big one happens when Caleb awakens and we are first introduced to him. He gets a call from Francis, and if you look at what he does to his phone, he clearly presses decline. However, we cut immediately to him taking a walk to work and talking to the AI version of the character on the phone. So either he declined the call and then answered another one right after it, or in the real world he declined it and in the mirror world he answered it. Another one of note happens when Bernard is at the farm that specialises in turning animals from lab to slab. He finds a calf with a broken leg that has barbed wire wrapped around it. The camera lingers on this for quite some time and it clearly draws attention to it. However, after Bernard is approached by another employee, we cut back to the cow to see that the barbed wire is gone. It was not removed, and perhaps Rehoboam could not determine the cause of why the animal broke its leg, so it didn't end up putting it in. Bernard heads back to his shack, and on the way he passes a group about to break out into a fight. However, we later see that they're standing around doing karaoke, so either they found the healing power of music, or something was wrong in the mirror world. These shots happen just seconds apart, so yeah, something definitely seems off. In the episode, Liam introduces Dolores, his girlfriend, to his friends at the party, and we later learn that the identity she took was Laura Aspin. However, Roderick's girlfriend later refers to her as Lara rather than Laura. Another mistake with Caleb happens in his history. He calls the waitress that came to him after his mother's disappearance Sarah, even though, according to her name badge, she's called Sarah. Connells is also referred to as Canals by several characters, and a god in episode 5 calls the system Rehoboam to Serac's face.
What is it? Rehoboam analyzer traffic coming out of the Yakuza facility.
I'm not even kidding, this guy is why I was calling it Rehoboam instead of Rehoboam for so many episodes. Now, these are little mistakes that could just be put down to people pronouncing things incorrectly. For example, me and Connells, who are from the UK, call Serac Serac, whereas others call him Serac. So yes, YouTube, depending on what part of the world you live in, people pronounce things differently. Hale also committed a fashion faux pas when she wore the same dress twice in 2 different episodes. This could either be because she loves that jacket, or Rehoboam could have wrongly assumed which day she was going to wear it on. When Bernard is journeying back to the motel in episode 4, we see some rockets landing, and these are actually real world ones known as VTVLs, which stands for vertical takeoff and vertical landing. The sky around them looks murky and very hazy, however when we see things from Bernard's perspective later, it's blue. There are also some minor ones, such as us believing that Bernard and Stubbs had gone to the re-education center in Mexico when really they'd gone to San Francisco. Solomon is sort of a mirror image of Rehoboam, and even the giant AI balls are in some ways larger versions of the pearls that are the brains of the hosts. In addition to this, we did see a strange choice in Maeve's allies. Initially it was thought that she may choose Armistice, but instead she opted for the version from Shogun World. Now why this is important is because they didn't really have a connection, and still, for whatever reason, she chose her over someone that's been with her from the start. It seemed a bit strange when looking at it like this, and though it is relatively close to what Maeve would have chosen, it also perhaps shows that the machine does not get everything right. But what's the point in all this? Well, there's a couple of theories floating about. It could be possible that Dolores has actually broken into the mirror world to see what would happen. She may be here to rescue Caleb, as the character potentially died in the real one after committing suicide, and she's broken into it to make him cause an uprising that will crash the system. We've seen that if enough chaos is caused, that things can shut down, and perhaps this is actually the way to destroy Rehoboam. Mirroring this, the mirror world itself could be created by Serac so that he can run through a simulation in which he uses Maeve to fight Dolores, and he's merely testing the outcome. Either way, I do think that there is an explanation for all these mistakes, and that is that the showrunners are just really crappy and have no idea what they're doing. Now, I'm just kidding. I think that Dolores is a host, and therefore there was no data collected on her. Therefore, Rehoboam is unable to predict her behaviour, so more and more divergences are created, making the system spiral out of control and meaning that it gets more and more things wrong. Dolores is looking for a way to free all people from the system, and thus she's made them a messiah who just so happened to also be an outlier, which we also know are people that Rehoboam is unable to predict. Therefore, as Serac cannot see the future, he cannot defend against it, and she can finally free her kind and bring humanity crashing down. And that's the video. The good thing about this one is, right, that even if it doesn't get announced in the finale, I can just keep peddling this theory until the show finally ends and be like, well, it could be happening. So I've got you there. Now, obviously, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this theory, so comment below and let me know. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure you check out a breakdown of the other big fan theories before the finale, which are going to be linked at the end. Every month on the 15th, we give away free Blu-rays, and all you have to do to be in with a chance of winning the Marvel Phase 3 Part 1 box set is leave a like and subscribe with notifications on. If you want to support the channel and get to see content early, then please consider clicking the join button. You can also come chat to us on our Discord server, linked below, or at DefinitionYT on Twitter. Those are the best ways to keep up to date with the channel, so hopefully we see you over there very soon. This is a channel for people who are never missing television, so if that's the kind of thing you like, you need to subscribe to Definition. Thanks again for taking the time to watch this. You've been the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Peace.